Good afternoon and welcome back to LogiSYM Asia Pacific 2021. I'm your moderator, Marcus Kraft, and I have the pleasure to introduce the moderator, Joe Lombardo. He will take you through the afternoon panel discussion. Sustainability is no longer a compromise in designing or transforming end-to-end supply chains. And I will hand over to you, Joe, please.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Marcus, and welcome to everybody. Our topic this afternoon is Sustainability, Smart Solutions, and Industry 4.0. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to my panel, Dr. Shereen Nassar, the Global Director of Logistics Studies and Supply Chain Management at the Heriot-Watt University in Dubai. I got Stuart Whiting, Senior Vice President, Global Supply, Logistics and Planning at Schneider Electric here in Singapore, but he covers the region and global functions. I got Eddie Tan, who is the Vice President, Energy Transmissions at Sembcorp. And I've got Gwyneth, who is the Senior Manager, Sustainability at Agility. And I got Kavickumar Muruganathan, Asia Pacific Lead in Sustainability Compliance at Neste. My apologies, Kavik, if I mispronounce your surname. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the panel. And the audience, you are free to ask any questions. What we will do, we will ask three core clusters of questions, and then we will allow some audience questions to come in, and then we'll carry on the discussion. So let me kick off by asking the first question to my panel. So what are your biggest thoughts around sustainability in your perimeter in the supply chain, and how critical is business leadership in addressing this issue? I'd like Stuart Whiting from Schneider Electric to take the lead on this, followed by Eddie and other comments from the panelists. Stuart.
Great. Okay, thank you very much, Joe, and thank you for the invite, and pleasure to be here with you all. So first of all, everything starts from the very beginning. It starts from product design. It starts from the beginning of the supply chain. And for us, getting that thought embedded into the offer creation process, as well as into any infrastructure, as well as partner and supplier infrastructure that we're looking after, is the absolute essential. So it's moving away from, or embedding with the traditional metrics of service, cost, and features, this very, very important part of sustainability, and that it becomes one of the top criteria in all the decision making we're making, not just for the now, right, but for the longer term. And when we're talking about infrastructure, we're talking about making decisions that have impact for 30, 40, 50 years. The next one's really full scope 1, 2, and 3. For us here at Schneider, the biggest challenge we've got is scope 3. It's for our suppliers and obviously through to our customers as well. 1 and 2 is relatively in hand. We need good partnering, but really getting people to think end to end, because if we don't get everybody together and bringing all of our partners and suppliers and customers together, it gets very difficult to unwind everything.
Absolutely.
Once that decision's made. So that's really key. Next, critical that we really partner with key providers like our 3PLs or third-party logistics providers, setting up communities, obviously not contravening any antitrust or any regulations in that space, or be seen to be doing any collusion. But how do we really create shared infrastructure which is for the benefit of society and the environment of what we're doing?
Right.
And then changing mindsets, and again, getting everybody to think about this end to end and getting that end to end buy-in on that journey. And then last but not least, the investments around data systems and analytics. And really, how do we bring all of this together to connect not just the supply chain end to end, but then how do you affect change for the better and make decisions in a sustainably conscious way? Right. So that would be my input on that one, Joe.
That's a great introduction. Thank you, Stuart, for that. And let me ask Eddie to follow on any comments from your side, and then I'll bring in the other panelists to see their views, because it's an interesting stage that you've set for us there, Stuart.
So thank you again for having me on the panel. Really pleasure to be here. To add on to what Stuart mentioned about the scope 1, 2, and 3, and maybe for those who don't, I'm not aware of Sembcorp. Sembcorp, we are a multi-utilities service provider in gas, power, water, and even waste management. We have made clear commitments of not just decarbonizing our own operations, but also helping our customer reduce theirs. we are offering lower carbon and more sustainable utilities and waste management options in addition to our core products. For example, we are exploring a greener blend into our fuel mix, and we made heavy investments into renewables. This will help us in our Scope 1 reduction and also help our customer to reduce their Scope 2 emissions.
Right.
Our leadership has also already made commitments. There will no longer be any more investments in brown generation assets and to focus only on greens. In the area of fleet electrification, we are also walking the talk with possibly the largest electric waste management fleet in Singapore, and which will in a way help customers reduce their Scope 3 emission. We also recognize the importance of integrating sustainability practices into our procurement and supply chain management. In addition to having our plants designed and built to international codes and standards, we also ensure the procurement of advanced equipment from suppliers who shares our commitment to sustainability.
Right. Thanks, Eddie. That's great. Gwyneth, on the point of emissions, I know that you've done some work on emissions, Scope 1, 2, and 3. Stuart said that they are focusing a lot on Scope 3. Take us through that model that you've been working on and you shared with me once before on this topic.
Yeah, no, of course, I've done a lot of work on this. At Agility, one of my tasks is to calculate our carbon footprint, which is, of course, including both the direct emissions from our electricity and fuel usage, as well as what we call our outsourced emissions, which are Scope 3 upstream transport and distribution. That's the kind of category of Scope 3 emissions.
Okay.
And I think it's really great that you started the panel with that question, because this is sort of where we are with sustainable logistics now, is that the supplier sustainability and the reporting on supplier emissions and bringing suppliers into the discussion is just so very important. And you see this in a number of ways. So for those of you that report to CDP, you know that they've really kind of amped up on asking about supplier emissions, and there's a new supply chain questionnaire. Also, if you're a company that reports to the Science-Based Targets Initiative and you're setting science-based targets, you're now required to report to set a target for your Scope 3 emissions that you can't necessarily address by offsetting. That means that there is no way to sort of pay for the emissions to go away and that not to be your problem. There's only one way to address these emissions, which is working in collaboration with your suppliers and actually doing something to improve the efficiency of your fleets or of your operations.
So no shortcuts, in other words, no shortcuts. You got to get down to the chase.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And so it's a real challenge, and I think a lot of businesses are in the same position that we are at Agility right now, which is wrapping our heads around integrating the systems. So the past 3-4 years have been about how do we make sure that emissions reporting is built into our financial reporting, our job booking systems, so it's seamless and high quality data on our environmental impact.
Okay.
But now we're going to have to be gathering data from our carriers as well.
Yeah, and we'll come to that point later on when we talk about KPIs. Shereen and Kavik, what are your comments about your thoughts about where we are at the moment? Shereen, you're on mute.
Yes, this actually interests just reiterate what the speakers mentioned about the current situation. It's very important actually enforcing the fundamentals of supply chain management now in managing sustainability, especially focusing on Scope 3. It's very important to work with your suppliers and look at the bigger picture of sustainability, dealing with all the stakeholders. Now, this is kind of a new approach to manage sustainability, and just very important. I think we'll discuss this more also today.
Joe, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, Kavik, your thoughts on sustainability, your opening thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, can't agree more with other speakers. I think when you talk about supply chain management, I think, and when the topic of sustainability is broached, I think collaboration is key. I think partnerships as well, and most importantly, capacity building, especially with our upstream suppliers. That's one of the things that we think very strongly about in the work we do with Neste as well. How do we build capacity with our upstream suppliers to report and disclose accurately their relevant emissions in their supply chains as well.
Excellent. Okay, that's a good introduction from all of you. Thank you for that. So now my next question is, are current initiatives enough, and where do we see the opportunities to do more? So I'll ask you, Gwyneth, to actually take us through that second question, because that's an area that we feel there's a lot more to be done. What are your views?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I would say overall that companies have been focused on incremental improvements to efficiency, and that's absolutely great for the past, but it's really not moving the needle. They're not doing enough. We're not anywhere near what we need to be doing to achieve the Paris Agreement goal of keeping global warming below 2.2 degrees Celsius in this century. So I think we've been focusing too much on what's commercially viable at the margins instead of looking at really redesigning businesses for the low carbon economy of the future. Companies haven't been playing this role of, okay, I want to be the leader in 20 years. What does my business model look like given the sustainability trends of today? And that's really what they need to be thinking about. So let me give you an example of this in the logistics industry. So as you may know, LNG for shipping is something that's really taken off, right? You'll see that Singapore, the port of Singapore, is investing in LNG bunkering infrastructure. CMA CGM and Hapag-Lloyd have both ordered a bunch of LNG ships. This is great to be moving away from heavy fuel oil, but we have an issue. The IMO goal is to reduce emissions from shipping by at least 50% against I forget the baseline, but by 2050. And I think it's a 2008 baseline, so actually the reduction is like 80% what you need. Right. And LNG only reduces emissions by about 20%. Right. So even if we were to take all of the ships out there today and convert them to LNG, we wouldn't be even halfway to reaching our target. So, but LNG is out there, the technology is proven, it's commercially viable. So you see a lot of energy going that way, when really what we need is more ambitious zero carbon solutions.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So Kavik, coming back to what Gwyneth said and also what Stuart said at the beginning, it's all about design of supply chain, going upstream and designing all the components. What do we need to do more to move the needle forward in your view?
Yeah, I think along the same lines of what Gwyneth has shared, I think a lot of the change that we have been seeing right now has been very much centered upon the organization itself. And I think as organizations, we need to see it tend to look outwards a bit more, look towards the ecosystem. How can we harness the power of uncommon collaborations to create the change that we want to see? And of course, how do we become more transformational than incremental? So a lot of times these targets are very much passive, very much conservative in that nature. So right. We need to be a bit more aggressive to really ramp up the efforts. And I don't think we can. I think a lot of organizations are adopting this wait and see approach. Okay. And in many organizations, I think still the bottom line is fundamentally centered upon profitability. So this has to change. Mindsets have to change. There's been slow changes, but more needs to be done. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Kavik. Eddie, you're in infrastructure. You are changing things. The world is changing. Things are happening. What is your answer to not enough being done? Are you think your organization is doing enough to be done, and how much can you help us move that needle forward in what you are doing?
I think we are moving the needle, baby steps, and there are enough incentive in place for us to add in the necessary infra to decarbonize some of the processes that are heavily carbon today. But I feel there should still be a balanced view on how much and how fast this could be deployed. There are many lessons learned on some technologies that are too early to be deployed, where if there's no clear thought process on the entire circular economy, how you're going to do with second life panels, how you're going to recycle batteries, there could be a lot more waste in the industry than if it's not planned properly in the first place.
Okay, that's great. So let's move on to the next step then. So, Kavik, what do you see as a fundamental game changer in your sphere of influence, and what do we need to do more than just talk about it, but actually take physical actions to drive us forward?
I would say it's know-how, and I think it's a lot of to do with the sharing within the community. I think especially with an organization with Neste, we are into the renewable fuel and renewable aviation fuel business.
Right.
So I mean, there's a lot of technology involved in this. So one of the fundamental game changers, I believe, is technology and innovation, and that's something that we have been looking internally quite a lot into. So we are also exploring how we can become more circular in the way we operate. So we are constantly on the lookout for new types of waste and residues that can actually be transformed into valuable biofuel for use in transportation or aviation. So I would say the fundamental game changer in this sense would be how to marry our sustainability goals with the drive and the push towards innovation and adoption of technology within our ecosystem. So I think that's one of the most fundamental issues, I would say.
Okay, thanks, Kavik. Now, Shereen, coming back to your area of influence in terms of the academia, we talked about knowledge, we talked about technology, we talked about game changers. How are you responding to this in academia? What is being done to actually link what you are teaching the future generation to the realities in industry and what we're expecting for the future?
Yeah, in academia, you obviously, we deal, when we talk about innovation and technology, all of these new areas and require lots of research and exploration about what needs to be done and find the appropriate framework for sustainability, working on, especially in relation how to implement, how to select the technology, how to see the long-term impact, because it's something really missing, the implication of the change and the transformation on long-term impact on businesses. So research is going on to explore different areas, and sustainability in relation to technology, it's obviously research and different studies mention it's an enabler for sustainability, but how to select the technology, how the implementation, how to integrate the technology in within the infrastructure of the business is something really needs to examine. And also the other thing is just the need to move from being responsive from the responsive approach or reactive approach to more a proactive approach, and to integrate this sustainability issues within the business from more a strategic perspective in your plan, within your integrated business plan, and translate this in terms of actions for by also not only action, behavior even, and culture, builds a culture of sustainability. So lots needs to be done in this. And I think in terms of game changer, I would also add to that is the continuous introduction of new sustainability laws and legal frameworks and goals. This actually put lots of pressure on businesses to respond to that. So okay. I think this is very important thing to address and to consider how businesses can do that, especially if this really expectations, if these goals really matching the capabilities of businesses to meet within the time frame specified within these laws or goals.
Okay, that's great. So now that takes me to the next point, which is very important to what you just said, all of you, on the point of game changers. Leadership is very important. All of you are leaders in your sector. All of you have functional ownerships that you are driving within your organization. So where do you feel your functional ownership can really start to make a difference and implant foundations to address these game changers, to address integrating technology, knowledge, know-how, etc.? So let me kick off with you, Eddie, and then I'll ask Stuart to come in to make his comments.
Yeah, so while I'm not exactly within the SUSTI team in Sembcorp, we have a wider team for that. I do carry the tall order of energy transition in my professional title, which literally means moving from brown to green in our business lines.
It's a big responsibility, though.
Yeah, it is. And being the company that also just adopted a new tagline, sustainability is our business, we believe that responsible corporates can play a role as agents of transformation for a sustainable future. We see sustainability in our company tightly linked to our ability to deliver this long-term value for our growth and to our stakeholders. This would require us embracing new technologies, sometimes even disruptive to the extent of cannibalizing our own inherent business, in order to reach sustainability targets of going from this brown to green approach. I mentioned just now as well to also perhaps ensure that whatever we deploy has a full circular economy mandate to it. We are also working with partners to look at recycling for end-of-life solar panels and energy storage systems.
Right. Eddie, before I go to Stuart, I want to ask you something about this phrase that you keep using, the transition between brown and green energy. Now, clearly, we know that brown energy is energy made out of non-sustainable fuels, and green energy is made out of sustainable fuels. Correct me if I'm wrong. But what are the pain points between this transition? How quick do you think you can get the transition through? And what are the barriers that will stop you going faster?
It's happening as we speak. Today, you heard an announcement that the financing are no longer going to the brown segment of the power generation industry. You will see industry players like ourselves gravitating to green anyhow because just availability of fundings and support in that area. The challenge in this case would be the abundance of hydrocarbons in the market still. There are areas in the industry already where green is cheaper than brown.
Sure.
But there must be some fundamental, I think we discussed a bit just now, the grid has to be able to take in the green. If the grid is not robust enough, then there should be significant upgrade on the grid in order to have prevalent deployment of green in the grid network.
Yeah, but the slowing down of funding of brown energy certainly will be a game changer towards the green energy. Thanks, Eddie. Stuart, your take on this point?
Yeah, no, thank you, and good points, Eddie. Certainly here at Schneider, we believe that sustainable energy is a basic human right. So again, without re-emphasizing what we shared before, you got to design with the beginning and the end in mind, and the traditional cradle to grave, particularly when you're looking at product life cycles as well. And certainly the investments in not just technology, but data, and using that data properly across the supply chain to make the right sense and predict calculations in your planning, how you manage in your manufacturing, to how you manage your execution, to how do you respond to events that are live. And to me, this then becomes walking the talk. So you've got to demonstrate it in your buildings. We're lucky, we develop the technology, we develop the products, and we put them in our own facilities, so we walk that talk. But most importantly, I think for me, is that we are taking that upstream. So when we engage with our suppliers, it's very, very firmly placed in the contracts their obligations from a sustainability standpoint. And if they do not deliver to those, the consequences of not delivering to that as well. Similarly, we are very proactive in managing our customers, and with the way that we provide consultancy services in the arena of energy, sustainable energy, proactively put up what I would say is solutions or suggestions on how they could do things better. Okay. So it's about being a community citizen, as well as taking those actions to make sure that you're making the right choices, not just for today, but for the future, as I said before, 40, 50, 60 years down the road.
Excellent. Thank you, Stuart. Gwyneth, Kavickumar, any adding points to that question from your side?
Yeah, I'd like to add a couple points. First, I wanted to share that, Eddie's talking about this transition from brown to green. And actually, a few years ago, Agility put in solar panels on top of all of our warehouses together with Sembcorp. And it was a really good investment for us. So if you're considering doing that, I'm sure it will actually work out for you very well from a business perspective. Also, Eddie's been using this term circular economy a lot, which is still fairly new. It's not so new in Europe. They're working on circular economy regulation, all that, but it's still kind of new to Asia. And it's a very important issue for Asia. Actually, a lot of single-use plastic, not so much for Singapore, but other countries where there isn't really great waste management infrastructure. So how do you sort of recapture this? And of course, the issue around recycling solar panels, that's so important. So I'll be interested to hear more about how the kind of industry of solar panel recycling is going to grow and change in coming years. And the last point, in response to what Stuart had mentioned about working with suppliers and being clear about the consequences for non-compliance. Having seen this from a few different angles, both working at Agility, but also from Forum for the Future, a lot of businesses struggle to do anything with their suppliers other than just sort of implement standards, but not make any changes in terms of the types of contracts that they're issuing or how they're working in partnerships. So I would encourage, and for our own business as well, Agility has a lot of suppliers. And, it's really important to think, what's in it for my suppliers? Not just, how can I make everybody comply? But, okay, how can I make this really attractive for them, commercially attractive for my best suppliers, to improve their performance and go along with me on the journey? In logistics, we have very short contracts often, which allows us a lot of flexibility during, very volatile times. But maybe, we need to rethink that for some of our key suppliers and how we work in partnership.
That's great, thank you. And the circular economy is certainly something we can expand on later on. But I just want to ask two more questions before we open our audience questions slot later on. But so can I come now to another point about financials? So do you think that traditional payback KPIs are still relevant when tackling sustainability programs, and what could be alternative financial KPIs that we should be considering, including the aspect of the circular economy? So let me start with Dr. Shereen on this to give us your view, and then I will invite Stuart and the rest of the panel to make some comments.
Apparently traditional payback or return on investment KPIs are still relevant but incomplete and limited to measure the overall sustainability performance. So to address this gap, we need to adapt different approach, which we call it value creation perspective. So anything that makes total value more visible can be game changing. So total value as opposed to merely financial value, this is what I mean. So the role of sustainability dimension, because I think a lot of discussion focusing on the environmental dimension, but we shouldn't forget actually the other dimension. So the role of sustainability dimension in the value creation process should provide the rationale of sustainability initiatives and investment. So sustainable businesses consider a wide array of environmental, economic, and social factors when making business decisions. So these businesses actually monitor the impact of their operations to ensure that their short-term profits don't turn into long-term liabilities. So what companies need to do? Companies need to integrate their strategies with environmental, social, and economic dimensions. However, actually, sustainability aspects we find, I think, in many businesses are often not linked to company strategies. And there has been growing difficulty in measuring sustainable development. So I think from the academic research perspective, research showed that in additional sustainability perspective based on sustainability balance scorecard, framework would be particularly beneficial or efficient at driving companies toward integrating the sustainability dimension into their strategies. So in terms of the key performance indicators that should be used, so we need to consider obviously the three dimensions, the environmental performance indicators focusing mainly on the gas emissions, renewable resources, resource consumption, and waste. Social performance indicators will be related to encouraging employees to accept cultural change, improve the quality of work conditions, to guarantee respect of human rights, and to participate in social initiatives. In relation to economic performance, this here maybe can be translated in financial indicators. So things related to indicators, KPIs related to increased return on investment. And this could be related to cost of ownership, linked to energy, cost consumption, environmental tax, growth of gross margin, total of cost and investment relating to environmental protection, environmental cost saving, and environmental penalties. The other indicator related to increasing the revenue associated to sustainability dimensions, for example, percentage of additional revenues, percentage additional price premium, brand differentiation, percentage of income from recycling or closed loop programs, sustainable innovations rate, and also another dimension related to enhanced technology process. And the KPIs here related to investment in technology rate, environmental technology levels, percentage of new environmental sound product development and response to environmental product requests rate, and also response to environmental programs rate.
Okay.
The last one related also to guarantee quality of the process. So this indicator related to percentage of production sites with environmental certification, environmental information accuracy rate, environmental information availability rate, supplier rejection rate. So I think these are the main KPIs should be considered along with the payback KPIs.
Very interesting. You talked a lot of KPIs, a lot of issues. But Stuart, is it possible to actually envisage a model where you have the circular economy, you have all the different KPIs that we are relating to, where we call them carbon credits or whatever? Can you see that evolving as a real viable enterprise scorecard KPI around the circular economy? Is something that's viable in your view?
I do think it's very viable. I mean, I compliment Shereen on what she shared there. And certainly the whole concept of value creation often makes our financial colleagues a little bit nervous because it's intangible. So bringing some real sort of substance behind those numbers is critical. I do feel that there is an approach and there is a framework that we certainly use. And I think it complements what Gwyneth was saying as well, which is, you know, we're now reconsidering the stances that we take with our suppliers and similarly with some of our customers too, and think longer term. Right. We think about co-investment as well in terms of around facilities or shared facilities that are needed out there. And for me, you know, you've got to look at, you know, the direct and indirect cost reductions, but you cannot run away. And even though it's maybe a little bit intangible at the moment, the future cost of fuel is going up, and we will be paying taxes in one way or another sooner or later, if not globally, but certainly across geographies in the not too distant future. So for me, there's an inevitability there that needs to be confronted. And, you know, if you don't accept it now, if you don't take some brave, bold bets, you're going to pay huge consequences in the end. And again, to Gwyneth's point, value creation is proven. You just got to look at the numbers. The companies that are committed to sustainability, the companies that have seen real true benefits to their P&L and balance sheets, guess what? Their revenue quality's gone up, their customer satisfaction's gone up, and equally their employee satisfaction seems to go up as well.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of benefits all around here, Joe.
Great points. Thank you. So can I ask Kavid and Eddie on this point, how do we get acceptance of these very important game changers in terms of KPIs, measuring the substance of value versus just the numeric in isolation? Kavik, what's your view on that? How can we drive this acceptance of this new thinking of measuring sustainability?
Yeah, so I guess that's the question that almost everybody's trying to tackle right now. How do we come together to co-create this sort of KPIs that are accepted by the stakeholders within the supply chain? And that's where we have to find common ground, common value, and that's where corporates have to take the lead within their sectors. I think Shereen talked about the issues in the financial sector. A lot of the traditional KPIs are still in play. And when we talk about the whole issue of sustainable financing, I think we need to start paying attention more to the environmental and social aspects of the sustainability projects and what are the KPIs. I think we are very good at setting KPIs, not very aggressive KPIs though, but I think what is the impact? So I think we as a industry within our own communities, we need to start to come up with these KPIs by developing the capacity, reaching out and working with civil society organizations, subject matter experts on these issues. So I guess that's the way we need to move forward to tackle this issue.
Thank you, Eddie. Could I have your view on that? How do we persuade people to absorb this new concept of KPIs based on value creation?
Just have a quick comment so we got more time for Q&A. I feel a change of mindset is also about a change of culture, which requires a radical rethinking of people, process, and technologies. Take the recent COVID, as unfortunate as it is, we are seeing many blue skies in many cities that have never seen blue skies before. Yeah. And people will realize that by implementing such sustainable technologies, there will be benefit on a very macro scale, sometimes tangible, but how do we monetize this value is something that we need the experts to work on, that how we benefit not just companies, but society on a whole.
Right, perfect. Gwyneth?
Can I add something, please?
Sorry?
Can I add something related to this point, please?
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think here it's very important to ensure that top management support is there for that change, for making that change. So it's crucial for any sustainability investment or initiatives. So if we need to change behavior within organizations, so accountability needs to begin with executive leadership. So establishing a clear change agenda sets the foundation for a successful project. Also, executive leaders need to support the continuing improvement of sustainability effort, aiming to ensuring that the desired changes become deeply embedded in the culture and the actions of staff. And here we can really say that the KPIs will work, and we can really see the impact of these KPIs. This is the point Kavik mentioned about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Gwyneth, any comments from you?
Yeah, I'd just like to 100% support what Dr. Shereen just said. Something that I saw a lot when in my sustainability consulting days and also at Agility is that, unless you incorporate it into KPIs, unless you've got that CEO mandate that this is something that we're definitely doing, a clear change agenda, it's not going to happen, and not in this sort of integrated and comprehensive way. Sustainability, I don't know how many times you have to say built in, not tacked on, but that's the truth. I mean, it needs to be integrated into all the systems, into everything the CEO says. There's no opportunity when a truly sustainable company, when the CEO is speaking and sustainability isn't relevant. I mean, just think about that, Okay. So yeah, I think that is really core to mindset shift.
Thank you, everyone. Let me take a pause a moment and see the questions from the audience. I can see one question from Chris Crawley, Vice President for Sales, SkyCool Pty Limited. So he's calling from Australia. So the question goes like this: it's good to see that Scope 3 is now a focus of measurement and reduction. Are we at a point yet where clients like the Tesco's, Walmart's, Nike's are requiring low CO2 emissions as a requirement from the logistics vendors? And I suppose this is a general question. Are logistics providers bringing something to the party? So maybe I should ask you, Gwyneth, first, coming from a logistics provider, what you think of this question.
Yes, so Agility has always provided CO2 reports for customers, and we recently improved that. Good thing we did, because this year we've had an incredible uptick in the number of customers that are asking us for CO2 emissions reports, primarily from Europe, where I guess it's become a requirement. So being able to do that in an automated way has saved us tons and tons of time.
Okay.
So it is a requirement, yes.
Great. So we're on the way. So can I ask Stuart, as a user as well, as you're a shipper, Gwyneth, and Stuart is a user of services, but also he comes from the background of logistics, so he can see both sides of the fence. Stuart, your view and answer that question, please.
Again, but it's you know, and again, I'd like to just compliment the messages of others. It's a collaborative approach. You know, certainly if you look at the pressure that's going on, you've just mentioned the gentleman in Australia has just mentioned all of the top retailers, basically, that are also equally responsible for producing most of the single-use plastics that are out there as well. So they're getting beaten up on one side, and on the second side, there's also this pressure to be more sustainably conscious. So yes, our third-party logistics providers are sensing and feeling that. Generally, that's more within the contract logistics environment, but when you look at traditional freight services and so forth, then yes, absolutely, this needs to be approached in a collaborative manner with what I would call achievable KPIs, which are agreed upon up front. And that becomes part of the selection criteria about who you do or do not engage with.
Yeah, it's absolutely right, Stuart. You're absolutely correct. It's not a one-man show. It needs to be done in collaboration with a wider scale of players. We have another question here from Jaleel Sam, who's a director of grocery logistics in Singapore. Question goes like this. Do you think the UPS turn right concept has helped to save billions of dollars in fuel costs can be applied in Asian countries? Why was it not widely adopted in other territories? Who would like to take this question? Because I'm not quite sure what UPS are doing these days. Does anyone want to take that question?
I can speak to that a little bit.
Thank you, Gwyneth. Thank you.
Yeah, so this, if you're not that familiar with it, UPS found out that if they implemented a policy where nobody ever made a left turn, they actually would end up saving a lot of fuel, and that was in you know, urban distribution in the US. I would say that, you know, I don't know specifically whether or not that policy or intervention would work in Asian markets, but I do think that there's a lot to be gained from improving route planning in the urban environment.
But has the savings really been realized? Is it a fact or a myth that this concept works?
It's a fact.
It's a fact. Okay. And the question is, why is it not applied to other territories?
Well, I wouldn't know for UPS, but I think really good route planning in a lot of cases, and I've heard this from other people that work in sort of supply chain management. A lot of companies, they know there are benefits out there from improving route planning, but they're just not really that interested in pursuing them. It sounds too technical, but there are companies that specialize in this, do a great job, and they can definitely save a lot of money.
That's great. Thank you. Look, we're running out of time. Unfortunately, I have to press on a bit. So let me go to the next question on technologies. Claire, this is an area which is very, very crucial now in our age. So, Shereen, if I can ask you to lead this question, is what is your take on the sort of smart solutions available, and how can we create the right awareness to deploy the low-hanging fruits in the supply chains and business at large? And then I'll ask Gwyneth and Kavik to follow on some of their comments.
Okay. Yeah, I start by reflecting on reports indicating that industrial emission is a reason for more than 40% of greenhouse gas emission worldwide. So research and industry reports confirm the importance role of Industry 4.0 technologies as enabler for sustainability, which can offer numerous opportunities for reduction of carbon emission, energy sustainability, and social welfare improvement as well. And definitely economic sustainability is an immediate outcome of smart solution adoption. So when it comes to different or examples of smart solutions available and how we create the right awareness to deploy them at the larger scale, example of that we can mention digital supply network, smart factories, smart warehouse, smart product simulation and modeling, using digital twin, additive manufacturing, augmented and virtual reality, automation and industrial robotics, big data analytics, blockchain, cloud data and computing, even cyber-physical production systems, industrial Internet of Things, Internet of People, Internet of Services. So if I give example linked to sustainability, for example, the use of IoT and AI-based production, supply chain and logistics can increase the efficiency and flexibility of operations, reducing waste and minimizing carbon emission index per each product or unit.
Okay.
Also, smart solutions can help with environmental management practices such as life cycle assessment, eco-balance, or environmental performance benchmarking, which are extremely information intensive, and the data and the information integration, sharing, and the management capabilities of industrial Internet of Things and the cloud big data facilitates the value network wide development of environmental management capabilities. Another example for smart solution in relation to safety management and risk, tools such as intelligent cameras, smart sensors, smart safety wearables, and AI-based location awareness systems can detect and report any human or machine behaviors that might pose a risk to safety. In terms of social welfare enhancements, obviously, digital technology, smart solutions offers countless employment opportunities and the increase of minimum wages due to skill intensive of new jobs in the Industry 4.0 context, and can positively address the issue of economic inequality. So these are examples. In terms of how to deploy this at large scale and enhance the awareness, I would just first would like to highlight something from the user perspective. Who uses this smart solution could be business users, and also we need to consider also the rise of alternative sustainability data providers driven by artificial intelligence. So they actually play an important role now. I think speakers reflected on this company reporting issues. So whereas mainstream sustainability data is based and dependent on company reporting, AI approaches can assess sustainability performance based on external sources like media and industry reports, academic research, and other parts of a company's supply chain, which actually confirm the discussion today. And this can dramatically improve the relevance of sustainability rating and address fundamental questions about companies' societal value add and their preparedness for the transition to a more sustainable society. You can enhance this could be source of enhancing the awareness as well among business users, and other ways to enhance the awareness could be through actually disseminating the successful business cases. Solution providers, IT solution providers should play a role in identifying the needs and the benefits of using this smart solution. Sharing also expert views is important in that.
Okay, thank you, Shereen. I'm afraid we are out of time and I can't proceed because I'm going to be cut off any minute now. But before, and I'm sorry I can't answer the questions, but I would like to have your takeaways, please, because it's very important. So could I start off with Stuart? Stuart, could you let me have your takeaway? And my apologies for not being able to ask the other couple of questions that we had lined you up for.
Okay, just 3 key points. You know, this is all about a community approach. And I think that's come through very clearly in the dialogue that we've shared this afternoon. I do think there's a very important role for our colleagues in the third-party logistics world to play here, and this will require a change in behaviour, both from the buyer and the seller perspective. So back to Eddie's point about culture changes, as we think about how we address this community issue that's before us. And, you know, we need to continue the focus on the internal requirements to succeed. So if we're painting that sustainable vision, what is it that we're going to have to change culturally? What do we need to change from a leadership standpoint? And what do we need to do from a strategy and tactical perspective in order to embrace that? So those would be my 3 key takeaways.
Thank you very much, Stuart. That's great. Gwyneth, could I have your closing remarks, please?
Yeah, I guess I would say that number 1, incremental change is not enough. We need transformation of business for a low carbon economy. And that's going to require thinking big. It's going to require CEOs and other senior leaders to step up and implement change policies and transformation programs. And it's also going to require integrated technology. So sustainability needs to be integrated into all kinds of operational and financial systems.
That's great. Thank you. Great stuff. Kavickumar?
Yeah, just some very quick points. I think we definitely need an ecosystem approach towards our supply chain management and interactions. That's the first. And of course, I think as many of the speakers reiterated previously, I think we need to have a philosophical departure from the business as usual approach to something that that transforms things in leaps and bounds. And of course, lastly, I think it's very important that we need to communicate the real impacts of the externalities within our supply chain, and have very transparent, open methods in which we communicate and measure these impacts.
Thank you, Kavik. Eddie? Eddie, could I have
Yeah, so coming from the energy industry, can you hear me? Hi. Coming from the energy industry, I think the perception of sustainability has shifted from a nice-to-have to one of a must-have approach over the years. As companies are seeing sustainability initiative as a viable way for helping them to create profits and to open up new business opportunity. Another point about digital transformation is helping to accelerate sustainability, but also changes how the company manage their relationship with the wider world. And just like a company cannot digitally transform itself unless or until its people transform, I believe that while they come with its own incremental cost, technology and digitalization will play a crucial role in developing solutions for a better tomorrow.
Excellent. Thank you. And lastly, Dr. Shereen, you have the last word.
Yeah, sustainability, I think, is no longer an option or matter of intention without action. It requires a strategic collaborative approach through which sustainability dimensions are embedded within the business mission, strategy, plans, KPIs, organizational culture and the behavior, and the whole ecosystem. So sustainability should be seen as an integral component of the corporate's DNA. Thank you.
Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for a very, very interesting discussion. I'm sorry we couldn't touch all the points, but your inputs and your visions are absolutely fantastic. And I hope that we can have a second follow-up of this panel in our next LogiSYM Singapore in October of this year. So again, thank you all very much. Take care and good health, and stay safe from this COVID terrible disease. Thank you very much. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you again to the panel. That was Joe Lombardo, Dr. Shereen, Nassar, Gwyneth, Kavickumar, and Mr. Stuart Whitening on the sustainability questions. So thank you very much for listening in. Please stay tuned. The next session is coming up in 15 minutes. Thank you again, and have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Marcus.